As we at Ojavan searched for the best ingredients for our products, we have been guided in many ways. We have looked historically at influential and beautiful women from around the world, and are lucky to have found the geisha. Their knowledge on how to maintain youthful skin has inspired us in being able to give you the secrets of the geisha. It is imperative to know who these women were and are. We consider it important to educate the world about their history and the misinformation that has surrounded them in the Western culture. We also want to give these influential and strong women the credit that they deserve. The geisha, also known as gaiko or gegi, were first males and emerged in Japan in the 700s as dancers and courtesans who could be hired for dinners and events. The first female geisha appeared in 1751, and within a few years, the geisha became exclusively female and were more than just dancers. They learned to play instruments and studied the art of conversation. The emperor and elite wanted to be seen with the geisha due to their beauty and elegance, as well as the respect they attracted. By the early 1800s, geisha were forbidden from selling sex, and if accused of doing so, would lose her right to practice the profession. Geisha lived, and continue to live to this day, in a society called karyukai, meaning the flower and willow world, and work in districts called hanamachi, meaning flower towns. They are a professional class of women. They are considered to be forward thinkers and are front runners when it comes to feminism in Japan. They promote a women-only business model that allows women to be self-sufficient, have economic dependence, and, once fully trained, become wealthy. There is a widespread misconception that geisha are high-end sex workers. However, this is not true, as geishas were never courtesans. The confusion stems from Western soldiers' reductive and incorrect use of the term geisha girls for prostitutes during World War II. During the Allied occupation of Japan, some prostitutes, almost exclusively working for the occupying forces in Japan, began to advertise themselves as geisha girls, because foreign soldiers could not tell the difference between a geisha and a woman dressed in a kimono. The English term geisha girl soon became a byword for any female Japanese prostitute. The term geisha girls, its quick spread to Western culture, and the accompanying mental image of a woman in a kimono offering sex and entertainment is largely speculated as responsible for the continuing misconception in the West that all geisha are engaged in prostitution. For clarification, in today's world, hiring a geisha for an event is similar to hiring Taylor Swift or Mariah Carey to entertain you and your friends. The word geisha, translated directly from Japanese, is artist. Living embodiments of mystery, serenity, and romance, they perform tea ceremonies and provide entertainment for the wealthiest and most elite. Besides their appearance, one of the reasons that geisha are so famously celebrated in Japan is due to their knowledge and mastery of the traditional arts. In the 1920s, there were around 80,000 geisha in Japan. Now, there are between 2,000 and 3,000, and they still play the same important social role in modern Japanese society. By the 1830s, geisha were considered to be the premier fashion and style icons in Japanese society, and were emulated by women of the time. Many fashion trends started by geisha soon became widely popular, with some continuing to this day. World War II brought lasting changes to the geisha profession. Following the closure of all geisha districts in 1944, mostly all geisha had been conscripted into the war effort, with many finding work in factories or elsewhere through customers and patrons. Though geisha returned to the karyukai relatively quickly after the war, many decided to stay on in their wartime jobs. In 1945, the karyukai saw restrictions on its practices lifted, with tea houses, bars, and geisha houses, called okiya, allowed to open again. Though many geisha did not return to the hanamachi after the war, it was evident that working as a geisha was still considered to be a lucrative and viable career, and their numbers increased quickly. The vast majority of geisha after the war were aged 20 to 24, as many retired in their mid-20s after finding a patron. In the past, it had been an unspoken tradition for an established geisha to take a dana, or patron who would pay for her expenses, buy her gifts, and engage her on a more personal level. In essence, the geisha would host and engage in parties only for her dana while he paid for her living expenses. In the present day, it is less common for a geisha to take a dana, simply because of the expenses involved and the unlikelihood that a modern man could support both his household and a geisha's living expenses. After World War II, geisha unanimously returned to wearing kimono and practicing the traditional arts, abandoning all experimental Western styles of appearance and entertainment. This, however, led to the final blow for the profession's reputation as fashionable in wider society. Though the geisha did experience a rapid decline, they were rendered as protectors of tradition, in favor of preserving the image true geisha had cultivated over time. Historically, geisha held an appeal for mainly male guests as a woman outside of the role of wife. Wives were modest, responsible, and at times somber, whereas geisha could be playful and carefree. Though relatively uncommon in previous decades, geisha parties are no longer understood to be affairs for exclusively male guests, with women commonly attending parties alongside other male guests. Though geisha will still gracefully flirt and entertain male guests, this is understood to be a part of a geisha's hosting and entertainment skills, and is not taken as a serious sign of personal interest. The role of a geisha is to be a hostess and entertain her guests through art, such as music, dancing, and conversation. A geisha will always stay in control of the situation and does not have a relationship with her clients beyond traditional entertainment. However, if a geisha does decide to marry, she then leaves the karyukai and retires from being a geisha to pursue the path of wife and mother. The modern conflation between geisha and prostitutes continues as a pervasive idea, particularly in Western culture. Sheridan Prasso wrote that Americans had an incorrect impression of the real geisha world. Geisha means art person, trained in music and dance, not in the art of sexual pleasure. Similarly, K.G. Henshaw stated that the job of a geisha included entertaining their customers, be it by dancing, reciting verse, playing musical instruments, or engaging in light-hearted conversation. Geisha engagements may include flirting with men and playful innuendos. However, clients know that nothing more can be expected. In a social style that is common in Japan, men are amused by the illusion of that which is never to be. Geisha are regarded in wider Japanese society as some of the most successful businesswomen in Japan, with almost the entirety of the karyukai being owned and run by women. Historically, the majority of women within Japan were wives whose familial duties kept them from working outside their homes. A geisha, however, could achieve independence by working, making the profession one method for women to support themselves without becoming a wife. Moreover, a geisha chosen as the heir, or atotori, of a geisha house would have stable employment for much of her life, running the okiya throughout her career until the next generation. Over time, some Japanese feminists have seen geisha as exploited women, but modern geishas see themselves as liberated feminists as they find their own way without doing family responsibilities. Modern geisha mostly still live in the okiya they are affiliated with, particularly during their apprenticeship, and are legally required to be registered one, though they may not live there every day. Many experienced geisha are successful enough to choose to live independently. Geisha are often hired to attend parties and gatherings, traditionally at tea houses or traditional Japanese restaurants. Appointments and arrangements are still made by the mother of the house through the official registry office, which keeps a record of both the appointments taken by a geisha and her schedule. In modern Japan, geisha and their apprentices are a rare sight outside of the hanamachi or chayagai, meaning tea house district, which is often referred to as the entertainment district. Over time, the number of geisha has declined, despite the efforts of those within the profession. Factors include the nature of the economy, declining interest in the traditional arts, the closed-off and exclusive nature of the karyukai, the expense of being entertained by a geisha, and mostly the expense of training to become a geisha, which is known to cost over $500,000. It is common for a geisha's training to take at least 5 years to complete, and during that time, they become master musicians, mesmerizing dancers, and consummate conversationalists. They learn to be supremely graceful, and many become skilled at writing poems, composing music, or painting and drawing. Here at Eau Javon, we stand behind our products and the research that has been done to promote healthy skin and lives. We stand proud to have a fabulous skincare line and to use the title of Geisha to thank and let others know of these incredible women and what they have to teach all women and men around the world.